Hi folks, Kevin here. Well, it's March 28th, 2018, and today's another episode of Ask Me Anything. So I'm going to go through a few comments and questions. First thing I'll announce though is that I'm planning on uploading some videos and potentially some slideshows eventually. Something I've been into for many years is photography. Well, I actually was into it years ago in undergraduate work, back when we had dark rooms, and I'm getting back into it now. I really enjoy spending a little bit more time capturing some of the things that I'm seeing out there. Hopefully in the next day or so I'll be uploading a video that's mainly meant for people who are interested in observing wildlife and all. So this is some videos that I've shot with the GoPro camera set up next to one of the bird feeders, and I'm hoping to do that with a few more of the feeding stations around, and then spring with the frogs and bullfrogs and all those things going on, potentially even doing some underwater videography. I know on this channel not too many people have been interested in the animal sorts of videos that I put up in the past, so I'm going to put this into the cat entertainment playlist so that you people are forewarned that I'll be uploading some of these. We're a multi-cat household, and our cats love watching the monitors or the TV screens when I have the bird feeders up there with the bird sounds and all. And they love with the aquariums as well, and so I'm going to play with this a bit, so there'll be some of those videos getting uploaded in the future. So now on to some of the comments and questions. So Barry Winters, hi Barry, thanks for your compliment. I had posted a video just waiting for spring, a time-lapse video that I uploaded. Said nice videography, been in the 70s and 80s where he's at. Besides the winds, spring is coming, so I'm very excited about that. I'll be uploading a couple more videos on showing the progress in the work area where we're germinating, starting seeds, and there's nothing like seeing the day length increase, the sunlight increase, the solar exposure, and certainly watching things grow. It gives me a big boost for the springtime. Really looking forward to summer. Happy Kids complimented us and said they love our channel. Lots of interesting videos, and that was the work area prep for starting the seed. So thank you very much, Happy Kids. It looks like you've got a pretty cool channel as well. Reviewing and playing more RPMs also commented as a great video, and that was on the Tesla challenge video that I did. We're trying to find out, geez, what sort of vehicle, what EV can we get in the future that can handle the snow loads that we have. That was our Tesla challenge video. Franco T. Silberi, I think I'm so bad at pronouncing names, please excuse me. The comment was, thank you so much for this video, and this video is how to size your solar panel system. This is about a year old. Can you do another video for calculation on how many batteries do I need for the solar system if installation is off-grid, and also verify how many solar panels and batteries are to be connected in series and how many would be connected in parallel? I'm very happy to do some battery backup systems videos in the future. I have done so. Our solar system here that we have is a large system. It meets more than our needs, and we have a big 45 kilowatt generator, and I have a small generator, and we have a small battery backup system that's separate because our photovoltaic system is grid tied. And what you're asking about is being off grid, and I'd say I refer you back to that same video as far as trying to determine what your needs actually are. That's the first. Actually, the first step is seeing, not just determining what you're currently using. So if you're young and you're new and you're thinking about building a an earth ship or a tiny house, or you're trying to adopt a minimalist lifestyle, I think that's awesome. Then I would say start, get yourself, and I'll put a link in the description below to either the kilowatt or what's the other name? I think I wrote it down here. Electricity usage monitor, power meter, plug-in, energy, watt, volt, amp, kilowatt hour, consumption analyzer, and I'll put a link in below, into the description below this video. I used a kilowatt initially, and now I use Z-Wave, which is part of the smart home technology, to assess how much energy is being consumed by each freezer that we have, refrigerators, those sorts of things. And it just keeps a running total of all the consumption that we use. And then we have them in our main panels, our circuit breaker panels, where I monitor each branch. There's two lines, two 120 or two 110 lines making the 220 volts, and I can see off each side how much is being consumed in each building as well. But that's probably beyond most people's goals. Nowadays, people are becoming much more mindful of trying to reduce their consumption, and that is the number one step. So you know, I can do more videos on this, just giving, you know, an idea. If it's, let's say you can buy a solar panel that's a 100-watt solar panel for about $100, and there's much more involved in that. That's about 1/3 of the cost of everything getting installed except for batteries, and that that may seem absolutely awesome, but let's say if you unplugged or replaced a 100-watt light bulb with an equivalent 9-watt light bulb, well, you just saved 91 watts or $91 as far as, you know, the investment into a solar panel, as well as the other components that get hooked into it. First step is always reducing how much energy you're consuming. So if you're just starting off, you're not consuming anything right now, you may opt for an earth ship going with a 12-volt battery backup system and a small photovoltaic system with a charge controller and charging the batteries, and then using that DC current going to each one of your 12-volt refrigerator and your 12-volt lights in there. It's more costly, those appliances, as compared to being able to go to a big box store or like Home Depot or Lowe's, or those are the ones here in the States anyways, and you could get pick up an appliance, whatever the appliance is. So depending on where, and geographic location is another big key element, and the number of sun hours, and those things were all things I covered in the video that you commented on and asked this question about. So I'm not sure what your goals are. Everything's really dependent on your goals and determining what your needs are versus what your desires are. How big a home? Like here, we have multiple buildings on site. We have all, you know, quite an elaborate electrical power production system. We don't have a power storage system yet, because I'm waiting for costs to come down further, and potentially I'll just be building my own power walls for our backup system here. And I'll go over all of these topics in future videos. But to give you sort of a brief overview of how we go through the process of determining what size solar power system we need, certainly refer to that video to see how many solar panels you need. And once you've determined, so let's go to that. In that example, in that video, I indicated that there were 9,250 watts that we used in a typical day. And if we were to purchase 37 250 watt panels, and this is quite expensive because this is a little bit larger than what one of the reference was for the U.S. national average for what electricity people would use in a year's time. We broke it down to days for that video, so you can refer to that video to see these numbers where I'm getting them from. But let's say that you needed 250 watt panels, or you could purchase those pretty reasonably. You got 37 of them. You got everything else that you need to mount the systems and the wiring. Well, then the question is, well, what sort of battery system? But we have to put our brakes on for a moment when we're talking about battery systems, because you don't get a 9,250 watt storage battery system because you have a 9,250 watt solar panel power production system coming in. So there are many variables we need to think about. So are you going with a 12 volt battery system, a 24 volt, 36 or 48 volt battery system? It really depends. So if you've got a really small little system, you could go with some deep cell batteries or some golf cart batteries, used golf cart batteries or new golf cart batteries, and use a lead acid system. And I'll go into videos in the future talking about some of the drawbacks of some of these batteries, because when you're dealing with lead acid, you're going to have to be keeping on track, keeping up to date with them and managing them very well. And that's what I used in a video I'll create in the future, because I realized I didn't create this video yet. It's a portable battery backup system made with several deep cycle marine type batteries. So those batteries are all set in a little portable station with a solar panel system, small solar panel system to charge the system. And I could bring that to someone who was without power for a few days, and they could use that to do minimalist things there. Or we use it on our own property. If I want to go out back and use a chainsaw and not use fuel, I can go out and use that. And I'll talk about some of the pluses and minuses to a system like that, and the costs involved as well in the future. But let's take that example. We got 9,250 watts being used in a typical day. And then we just decide what sort of battery system, and you divide your volts depending on whether it's 12 volt, 24 volt, 36 volt, 48 volt into the watts in order to figure out the amps that you're going to need. But before we get to that point, you have to really think about where you are, your climate, what weather conditions. So let's say you're in Arizona, really sunny Arizona. Well, for the most part, you're in an area with high sun hours because you're closer to the equator. You're in an area that doesn't get much overcast clouds, so you may opt for having a 3-day period without power production. In other words, the solar panels, for some reason, there was a storm or something, or you were doing maintenance or whatever it is, and you are 3 days without any power. So that 9,250 watts, if you multiplied that times 3 days, that ends up being 27,750 watts. So now your battery system has to be 27,750 watts to accommodate for those conditions when your battery systems are down. Now, certainly when the power's out for whatever reason, there's an increased consumption for some reason, there was an emergency, people have got to come over, you're plugging in another freezer or a refrigerator, or there's been a terrible storm and the solar panels were damaged during that time and you have to repair it. Whatever the situation is, it's good to have that buffer. At least having 3 days is what I would say minimally. Up here, we can have snow-covered panels where I'm a full 2 months without producing any power at all. So that'd be multiplied tremendously, 60 times the 2,700, the 9,250 watts that would be consumed in a day. So it really is dependent on where you're located, what factor you're going to multiply that daily usage. So if you're in Arizona, in a place that you don't have to worry too much about it, or you say, you know what, I'm just going to use a portable generator during the time when the power is off, that's it. But I always believe, so having one backup to your system is pretty risky. Having two backups that's when I start feeling secure. You know, having one is none, having two is one, and having three is indeed having adequate backup. That's how I look at you know, being resilient, being able to respond to that unplanned incident that's going to happen. So again, depending on, you need to decide how long I can go without the power. The next thing is you know, realizing that, well, I have a lot of things that I don't need. You know, the freezer, I can run that for, we'll keep everything out of the refrigerator. We won't be going into or out of the refrigerator or freezer, or I'll turn off the air conditioner, whatever it may be. I'll throw a comforter over the freezer and refrigerator during these times, won't open the door, and I'll charge it up, I'll run it for an hour twice a day on the generator, and we'll use the battery usage less. So I hope that makes sense. Having a plan to put into effect immediately upon it, and I would say having drills so that you could do it if you're using a minimalistic approach to your battery backup system. Now we have to talk about battery discharge. So whether it's lead acid, lithium ion, or iron, whatever form of battery system that you're going with, and certainly like the lithium ion battery systems are much more expensive than the lead acid, but there are many benefits to it. But right now, let's just discuss the state of charge, or the degree of discharge. So the state of charge, 100% charged battery has 100% state of charge. If the battery is discharged 50%, then it has a 50% state of charge. If the battery is run dry, basically, if it's totally discharged, then it's 100% depth of discharge and 0% state of charge. I hope that makes sense. So when we're talking about batteries, it's so important. Like, everyone talks about the rule of never letting a battery get below 50% discharge. So if it's discharged 50%, then that's a huge reduction in the life cycles of that battery. So I took down a couple of notes. So the depth of discharge, let's say I would recommend planning on a 20% depth, or 20 to 25% depth of discharge. That way you can prolong the life of the battery, meaning the number of cycles, how many times you can discharge that battery, 20% or 25%. So let's take a deep cycle marine battery. It's a type that I built the system out back. And there are several of those batteries there. And if I discharge them to 20%, then they have 4,000 cycles. It means that they can be discharged. If every day I discharge them 20%, 4,000 days they would last, those batteries. However, if I discharge them to 50%, then we'd only get 1,600 cycles, 1,600 days. That's discharging the battery to 50% and then recharging it to 100%. If I totally discharge the batteries, let's say I just run them right dry, then I'm only going to get 800 cycles out of those batteries. So recharging the batteries long before they get very discharged is always the best. So how do you determine that? So if my goal is 20%, so that I get as long a life cycle, lifespan out of the batteries as possible, then I only want to go, let the batteries get discharged 20% overnight. So if they're only getting discharged 20%, there's 5 20% units in each 100%. So I multiply that 27,750 times 5. So now we're really up to, absolutely tremendous numbers at this point. We're up to 138,750 watts. if I'm building a battery backup system large enough to do it. So that's, and then you divide that by the volts of the system, and it really depends. Now again, the numbers that I'm using right there are for what I got offline, indicating was what the average person in the United States household of four, I think it was, a household of four, that's washers and dryers running, all electric. So it's a pretty significant. Ours is actually more than that, because I'm running multiple buildings, multiple camera systems, and lots of computing systems here on site. So ours is quite an elaborate system. I hope this helps somewhat. If you have more questions about this, I'll try and make some videos going into each component. I think it's best if I break this up into more manageable bite-sized pieces to make it easier to understand. But the point is this, is always trying to, one, reduce your consumption and be very accurate with what your appliances and all the things, your cell phone charger, your television, your computer, your monitor, every single thing that you're using. Like in here right now, I have a computer running here, I have another monitor here, I have a light here, a light there, I have a backup system for this camera there, I have my cell phone that has to be charged every day. So that's just in this little tiny place, all the things that I have to take into account. So it's really being mindful of those things. And if you, I'll put a link in the description below for, going to Amazon, at least looking at these systems that you can plug in. You can even put it into a gang plug, a multi-plug extension, so you can see just how much these things are using. You can also use, if you, in the United States, there's, what's it called? It's well, it's a little yellow tag on appliances that tells you annually how much electricity the appliance is supposedly using, and you just break that down and divide it by 365 days. Of course, a refrigerator or a washing machine or a dryer is running at different times, and it depends on how much you're using, how often you're using the appliances, how efficient the environment is that the appliance is in as well. Like for instance, the hot water heater, I'm up on the 3rd floor of our house. Our hot water heater, I have the hot water set to 125 degrees. However, I have 2 large preheat tanks. It's up here, and so it's always at least 85 degrees up here. And sometimes it's not, a little over 90 degrees up here. So when I'm heating the water, I'm heating water from, let's say, 90 degrees to the 125, as opposed to bring it in from outside at, let's say, it's 45 degrees and raising the temperature, heating 45 degree water all the way up to 145 degrees. So it's about being mindful about how much energy you're actually using, where the environment is, how many days backup do you actually have to need. If you're going to use batteries, it's certainly wise to think about the depth of discharge that the batteries that you're going to be using as well, so that you can preserve them, and think about the maintenance that's required. So the lithium ion systems, there's almost no maintenance. There is some, but relative to lead acid batteries, twice a year I go out and I go through all the lead acid batteries in that battery backup system that I have to make sure they're in great shape. I take off the terminals, I clean them. So there's maintenance involved, and your time is worth considering as well. So I will make a video about that portable battery backup system and how I used it, what things I would do differently in the future, the type of inverter I'd use now compared to the one that I put on there as well, all of those things. So I hope this was helpful as far as addressing your questions, Franco. I really hope so. Dreadnought Darkness commented and asked a question on the chicken feed, compostable cat litter, an inexpensive alternative to kitty litter, video that I posted a couple years ago. And I probably should update that video. and I plan on doing that sometime this coming season. The question that Dreadnought Darkness had is, do you know if this would have or create aflatoxin mold contamination, you doing the kitty litter this way with the chicken crumbles from the feed store? I think it's less likely than being exposed to hay or straw or peanut hulls. The aspergillus, it's ubiquitous, it's every place, but it certainly could happen. I think you have a better chance of getting hit by a car. Heaven forbid that happening. I think it's a really remote chance. In veterinary medicine, we would see certain breeds of dog that had compromises to their immune system, and they would get a severe upper respiratory, and the fungal elements of aspergillus would get into the sinus cavities. Now, it wasn't the aflatoxin, but aspergillus is every place, and the aflatoxin is less likely to be a contaminant in the kitty litter than like peanut hulls and hay and straw. But I got to make the disclaimer that it's entirely possible. Likely? No, I don't think it's very likely at all. Tim's Homestead. Your videos are always of value. I am starting some seed trays under lights also, but just enough for my tiny garden. Very good. Still need to order my weed mats for planting. Was wondering if you had a video on how your irrigation system is put together. Again, thanks for the great vids. I really look forward to them. And that was in response to the seed starting update that I did on the 24th, 4 days ago. So thanks, Tim. I really appreciate the positive feedback. And I'll end up making a couple of videos. Now, I'm using DripWorks drip irrigation at this point. I've been using soaker hoses for years before that. I've used overhead sprinkler systems as well. And I think I'll be using a combination of the drip tape, and I do like that, but there are challenges with it. I won't go into those challenges here. I'll create a couple of videos where I'm using them a little bit differently in different systems, and all the components you need to put together in order to make the system work relatively autonomously, so you have minimal input into the system. So thanks for the compliments, Tim. I always appreciate it, and yes, great questions. And it gives me good video ideas. And SC, hi Kevin and Thea, and that's releasing the ducks after the long winter being inside the coop. Thank God Pond 5 is open now. The ducks are out there having a great time. Darlene, my sister-in-law, one of the first things ducks do is take a bath. How fascinating. Yes. Well, they take baths all winter long in those big metal pans that we have in there. And they'll actually do the bathing mannerisms, go through all the steps even when they're not doing it. The chickens do dust baths. That's even cool too. But the waterfowl, the diving under, they get so worked up and so excited, and they've been out there like crazy. So thanks so much for the wonderful compliments and the observations as well. Verge Permaculture said thanks, and that was one of the videos that I did featuring YouTube creators, and mentioned about their permaculture introduction course that they're doing, and they're doing a solar greenhouse videos as well. So that's in Verge Permaculture. Just search through the videos that we have. And then Kenneth Getha, Netha, I'm not positive, keyline design for permanence, and this is a very helpful video. Thank you, Kenneth. I really appreciate it. I think that's it, all the comments that we got so far. So I really appreciate it. Again, sorry this was a long video, but I wanted to include at least some response to the battery questions and all. And I will be making the drip irrigation video, and I'll be making a overhead sprinkler video as well, and showing where we're applying them in different parts of the food forest and the annual gardens. And And there will be the videos that I'll be posting mainly for cats, unless you really enjoy listening to birds and seeing birds and all, or maybe fish. And I really appreciate everyone's comments and questions, and creating a pretty decent community. We're up over 1,100 subscribers now, so I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. Give us a like if you think the videos are of value. That really does help me. And certainly, I look forward to seeing you again. Always ask questions and leave comments. Thanks so much, folks, and have a great day. Bye-bye now.